Sure. Thanks, Rahul. Good afternoon and warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the ESG presentation by Tata Power at the second edition of our ICICI Securities Virtual ESG Conference. We request all participants to please keep their lines on the mute mode. After the presentation, we will open the floor for Q&A. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may raise their hand with the raise hand icon. Please note that this session is being recorded. Please also note that the scope of this session is limited to ESG, and we would request all participants to restrict the discussion to the said agenda. I would now like to invite Rahul to introduce the representatives of Tata Power. Over to you, Rahul.
Thank you, Rishad. A very warm welcome to Ms. Jyoti Bansal, Chief Sustainability, CSR, Branding and Communications for Tata Power. She's an engineer, MBA by education, has worked across traditional and digital media in a career spanning 25 years. She has joined Tata Power as the custodian of the Sustainability, CSR and Branding agenda in December 2020. Thank you, ma'am, for your time. We've also got Ms. Vaishnavi. She's the Group Head, Sustainability, Branding and Communications. Vaishnavi is an engineer, MBA, has experience in software development, business development, strategy, communications, and sustainability. She has joined Tata Power in 2009. Along with Jyoti and Vaishnavi, we've got Mr. Rahul Shah, Head IR, and Atidarshi. With this, I would like to hand over the floor to the Tata Power team for a presentation, post which we can have a Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rahul, and welcome to all participants. Just give me a minute while I share my screen. Rahul, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So shall we start?
Yes, please.
So welcome everyone. We are happy to be here to share with you the sustainability context and agenda that Tata Power is working on. You are all familiar with the space, so I will not spend too much time on setting context. Just a quick, starting point saying that the world is coming together. Carbon neutrality targets now cover 60% of the world's emissions. Large countries are now setting their governmental as well as corporate agendas. However, is it really enough? It seems it's not, because the last report which came out last month by IPCC on what is happening and what are we doing to planet Earth via human-driven global warming doesn't paint a very rosy picture. It is, in fact, if you read through the whole thing, it's a little scary. It almost seems like if we don't take absolute immediate action, then we will absolutely miss the targets of keeping warming close to 1.5 or even 2 degrees Celsius. In fact, just a couple of days back, World Economic Forum has released a video, some of you may have already seen it, which paints a very grim picture of if we do not, as corporates, as governments, take immediate action and stark action, then the picture for 2030, 2050 and going ahead doesn't look interesting or good at all for our coming generations. So definitely now it is not an option. It is something which all organizations have to take action on. And as we go forward, we will share with you what we as a large corporate which is operating across businesses, some of which are green and clean, some of which do have a carbon footprint and impact on the environment. What is it that we are doing? With India accounting for about 18% of the world's population and 7% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, the only silver lining seems to be that we are probably the only country among G20 which is on track to achieve targets under the Paris Agreement. But it will mean that literally year on year, month on month, we have to make sure that we keep to the targets which we as corporates are setting for ourselves. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. The entire ESG story is redefining the strategy for all corporates, and it is very clear that companies which do better on the ESG index actually do better financially also. So it obviously makes immense business sense also to really pursue this agenda. And in light of this, Tata Power is traversing a journey towards a more sustainable tomorrow. One of the big things which we are keeping in mind is that that portfolio of our businesses, which actually has a greater detrimental impact on the environment and on the climate, is something that we try to curtail and keep to the minimal. And we grow the business which can contribute positively to a better future for us. And in this journey, as I will talk to you a little later, we are actually involving all stakeholders in our business. So if you look at some of the key points that we are targeting and where we've set very clear targets for ourselves, there are some 6 basic points. But before that, I think the context that I want to set is that this is, while we start with an aspiration, we have actually hard-coded it into our business plans. So today, all of our business clusters, our cluster leads, our CEOs across businesses have all our ambitions on ESG hard-coded into their KPIs, into their business plans, with monies allocated for ensuring that we meet these targets. So we have already committed to no new coal-based capacity, with a phase out completely by 2048. We have already announced that we will be touching 15 gigawatts of solar and hybrid capacities by 2025. We are really focusing on our customer-centric businesses. We are promoting mass adoption of rooftop solar pumps, microgrids, home automation, smart energy management. Additionally, we are working very closely with all EV manufacturers in the country so that we can ensure that we don't have a chicken and egg story. There is a EV charging infrastructure that we are developing, which will spur this ecosystem and ensure clean mobility. Water management is another big aspect. While we all talk about carbon and about greenhouse gases, water and waste management is equally important. And we are adopting practices to ensure that we are 100% water neutral across all our businesses before 2035. We are working towards reaching 100% zero waste to landfill before 2035 again. And we have broken this down into targets which are specific, which are milestone based. So for example, we are already at 100% utilization of fly ash. We are working towards creating solutions which allow us to do 100% bottom ash utilization. We are looking at becoming completely zero waste to biodegradable before 2030. So it is not just nice big numbers that we are putting out with some dates which are 15 years into the horizon. We have actually broken it down into specific milestones for ourselves. And we are also very conscious of our social responsibility and the lives that we impact. So we are looking to impacting 30 million lives directly and positively by 2026. A large part of our effort is through building capabilities of women's self-help groups. And we are targeting that at least 30% of our outreach has to be affirmative action based and should benefit disadvantaged groups. So while we obviously adhere to and look to the UN SDGs, there are some 10 of those which we have really prioritized for ourselves and divided them into business SDGs, which help us to work towards our ambition of carbon neutrality, becoming a global leader in sustainability and circular economy, as well as CSR related SDGs, which guide the actions that we take in all our community relations programs. And what we have done is that we have set business-wise targets to ensure that we have a clear roadmap to achieve our ambitions. One of the big things which we are also doing is to work with global bodies to ensure that we can be part of the global agenda setting in the energy utility sector. Tata Power was the only Indian company which was part of WBCSD's SDG roadmap for electric utilities. This was released this year in March. It was the first ever roadmap for the power utilities. And we are closely working with other participating companies to evangelize it in India. And a couple of months from now, you will see the kind of work that we are going to bring out into the Indian space to make sure that not only do we work towards this, but we can also take all other companies along to work towards this agenda. As a responsible corporate, we have already committed to Science-Based Target Initiative. We are currently working on setting science-based targets for ourselves. And we are looking to close this by 2023 so that then we can work towards those to keep in line with the global warming numbers. With all of the work that we have been doing, we are fairly competitively placed in ESG ratings, though of course we have more work to do and we will continue to do that. So this is the kind of work that we've been doing. In 2020, we managed to increase our CDP climate change and CDP water security ratings from a D to a C. Also on the FTSE Russell, we managed to increase our scores. But like I said, there is still more work to do, and we are working very closely both with our businesses as well as with the rating agencies to make sure that we are doing the right disclosures, we are tracking the right metrics, and making sure that we continuously make progress on this. Like I said at the beginning, we are basically keeping sustainability at the core of our strategic intent and initiatives. So when we sit down with our business clusters to make plans for them, both for the year as well as on a 3 to 5 year horizon, our sustainability agenda is literally driving the decisions that we take. We have a very clear roadmap. We have already moved from a 16% clean portfolio in 2015 to a 31% in 2021. And our ambition is to make it 80% by 2030 and then move to a completely clean portfolio much before 2050. Since carbon is a large part of the entire conversation, not only are we coding it into our own business plans, but we are also involving all our stakeholder groups, whether it is our suppliers. So we are encouraging ESG disclosures. We are working with them to create responsible supply chains. Our employees, so for example, we are creating an app internally to allow our employees to measure their own individual personal carbon footprint, both as a person as well as a family. I think a lot of the realization and change comes from awareness. So that's what we are working towards. And similarly, our customers and our communities, we run huge volunteering programs. We have a large program called Club Energy, which actually already allows children to start becoming energy conservation conscious. So we've been working towards that for many years now. And like I said, you know, our customers are a large part of this journey. So what we're doing is to bring together to them smart green choices, little changes which they can make in their lives today so that we have a greener tomorrow. Some of these include things like smart home automation, which allows them to actually actively manage their energy consumption at home, Easy Charge, which is supporting clean mobility, smart meters, which again allow our customers to manage their energy consumption. And we have an offering of green power already available in Maharashtra, and it will soon expand to other markets. Multiple low carbon businesses that we have expanded our footprint in, including microgrids, solar pumps, rooftop solar, all of which are allowing consumers to get access to clean green energy and move towards a better future. EV charging, home automation, and ESCO are some of our other offerings. We already have EV charging points in 102 cities, 600 plus already installed, multiple thousands of home chargers. And you will see a huge ramp up of this in the current year as the EV ecosystem grows. We've been very focused on technology and innovation. So smart grid technologies like smart meters, sensors, IoTs. We have a full-fledged smart grid lab in Delhi, which works very actively also with startups in the space, which enable us to short circuit the technology route to move faster into the space. I already spoke about how we are supplying green power to our customers who are interested in having 100% green energy. And we work with Tata Trust and the Government of India for a clean energy incubation center, which is the first of its kind, and it offers complete lab to market support to enterprises which are interested in clean and green energy. Multiple customer-centric initiatives like demand-side management, digitalization, so that we can save on paper and encourage our customers to use digital modes of payment, and giving them green power solutions. One of the big things that we are realizing is that ecosystem conservation is something which is extremely critical for us from both our business and corporate responsibility initiative perspective. We run multiple large programs, and one of the things about us is that once we get into supporting a program, we do it on a sustained basis to make sure that we can actually make a real difference to the ecosystem of the spaces that we operate in. We have been working in the Western Ghats, which is a biodiversity hotspot, where we've been working both with the flora and the fauna. So we've been working with the Mahasir fish for the last 50 years. And this year we complete 50 years of that effort. And as a result of that, one of the species that we work with is finally now off the red list of the IUCN and is listed as of least concern in terms of its natural propagation. The other species of fish that we're working with is also on the path to getting there, but we've still got some more work to do there. We've been working with fishery scientists, with fishery departments across various states to make sure that we can also share the know-how with them. We run a very, very large afforestation drive called Tree Mitra. Till date, we have planted 3.5 million plus trees. During COVID, due to restrictions, while we could not do so much of the physical thing with our volunteers, we have converted it to an e-platform and then sort of gotten into doing it on our own. And with our renewable footprint increasing and with our large ambition to create large solar parks and solar farms, we are working on the grassland ecosystem conservation. We are one of the first organizations which has actually actively studied these ecosystems and come out with an assessment of how to ensure that this ecosystem is not impacted by the work that we are doing. I already spoke about how our efforts have got the bluefin torcudri out of the IUCN Red List, and that's like a big achievement for us because it not only shows that sustained corporate effort can make a difference, but also that there is so much more work still for us to do. Coming to the kind of social impact that we want to make, Tata Power has for years been running large social responsibility programs. We've been working with our communities across all the locations that we operate in. We are looking to impact 30 million lives over the next few years, and that's the target we've set for ourselves. We have focused on 4 key pillars. Education and employability being 2 of them. They are, of course, interlinked, and entrepreneurship and empowerment being the other 2. So the way that we look at it is that we work with our communities to train them, to make them capable, and to get them access to government schemes which are already available, but which they sometimes are not able to access. So we are looking to benefit 4 lakh plus youth directly and indirectly. The other 2 pillars are on entrepreneurship and empowerment. We are looking to build capacities of 25,000 self-help groups and co-develop 10 unique sustainable or recycled products and services. and facilitate scalability and a regular business pipeline. I don't know if all of you are aware, but we run a very large skilling institute called the TPSDI, Tata Power Skill Development Institute, which started initially as an in-house sort of institute to train our own people, but now it is benefiting communities across. We have just touched 100,000 youth trained, and we typically have fairly high placement rates where about 70 to 80% of these youth actually manage to get gainful employment. So that's a large initiative again that is helping us to really touch lives and make a difference to the communities that we work with. We also, like I mentioned earlier, work very closely with the Tata Group, and we have a strong affirmative action bias, and we work with scheduled caste, tribes, or differently able and other disadvantaged groups. Our ambition is to have at least 30% of our efforts going towards these communities. Gender diversity and inclusion is, of course, always an agenda. And across our stakeholder groups, we clock nearly 1 lakh plus volunteering hours over a year. Within our own organization, gender diversity is a huge agenda. As you will see, we have been growing for the last 3 years. We are still not where we want to be. There is still a lot of scope for us to reach an equitable gender and diversity portfolio, but we are taking specific and very pointed actions to make sure that we get there. So if you see the last year in our campus recruitment, we hired 28% women officers, and our ambition is to take that close to 50%, or at least as close to where the ratios are in terms of the education institutions gender split. For FY25, we are looking to improve our overall gender diversity ratio to 18% and then take it forward from there. As you will see, we have a large number of women in the junior management, which is basically to say that we are making active efforts to hire correct, so that going forward we have a good pipeline and a fairly diverse workforce. We have also created multiple policies and development programs internally to make sure that we can support our women to continue working, including things like sabbaticals, extended maternity leave, flexible timings, childcare facilities, and so on. This year, we have also launched a strong Tata Power Moms program, which is to facilitate mothers both emotionally, mentally, and physically in terms of timings to come back to work. We also are part of the Tata SCIP, which is the Second Career Innings program. In addition, we run a strong POSH, which is prevention of sexual harassment program, to make sure that they feel safe at work, and special travel provision so that we can make sure that women feel safe and secure when they are working, especially in the technical and other fields which require travel and shift duty and so on and so forth. Safety, of course, is a huge concern and a huge area of focus. Our aspiration has always been to be a leader in safe work practices. Our senior management takes KRAs like zero incidents as our aspiration. And we have been improving our lost time injury frequency rate over the last many years, as you will see from the chart on the right. We have a very robust governance structure in place. Our board of directors takes active interest not only in the financial operations of the company, but the corporate responsibility programs, the sustainability programs that we run. And like you can see, we have specific committees which not only follow the compliance requirements, but go beyond compliance. So in fact, that's one of the tenets of our governance structure, that while we do what is needed to be done, because that's compliance regulation, but we also go beyond that to make sure that we are setting the benchmarks for ourselves and for the industry. Our sustainability agenda, for example, is supervised by our board, and we actually go back to them at least twice a year, if not more, with the actions that we are taking and the kind of movement that we are making to achieve the ambition that we have set for ourselves. We also have best-in-class risk management processes. We have been awarded the ISO 22301:2012 for societal security and business continuity management systems. So all of this is also governed by a very robust internal audit system, internal risk mitigation process, as well as external audit. So that allows us to make sure that not only are we actively consciously preparing ourselves for the kind of risks which can impact our business, but also that we are prepared to take action so that we can protect our business from them. So that's it from our side. Rahul, over to you for taking the meeting forward.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now start with the question and answer session. Anyone who has a question, request you to kindly raise your hand. We will unmute your line and you can go ahead with your question. We will just wait a moment while the question queue assembles. We have the first question from the line of Anshuman. Anshuman, kindly unmute your line and go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for the opportunity. So my first question is on a the coal portfolio. So we have long-term targets for decarbonization, but could you elucidate some of the short-term targets we have, particularly in terms of carbon emission reduction, FGD implementation, water and waste neutrality? Any short-term targets which the company is looking forward to?
Yeah, so like you're aware that we've obviously set long-term targets, but those have been all broken down into short-term targets also. So for example, one of the things which we are very actively looking at is ensuring that we use the most latest available technologies. So while our thermal plants are running, to make sure that we can manage the emissions and also manage the waste that gets generated. Like I mentioned, we have already set targets that we will be zero waste to biodegradable by 2026. We are already at 100% fly ash utilization. About 18% of our capacity, of our thermal generation capacity across our large plants like Maithon and Jojobera is already zero liquid discharge. So we are already taking steps. Some of our business, our renewable business, of course, is already, zero. It has very limited impact on water and waste. So we have by business broken down and taken targets, some of which are obviously already in the public space, and some are internal targets for us, which at an opportune time we will make public.
Okay, and
Rahul here. Just to add to a specific question on the FGD part, as you are aware that the MoEF has mandated FGD installation at the thermal plants, and in fact work is already underway for Maithon, and ordering has been done for Jojobera. Similarly, for our two other assets in CGPL and in Prayagraj, both of them will be undertaking FGDs. With the FGD installation, the SOX emissions and the NOx emissions will be coming under, will see a reduction. And Trombay, which is which already has an FGD installed since 1980s. Therein, the PP is expiring in 2024, and as we had mentioned earlier, the company is actively evaluating either converting it from coal to other sources or coming out of the PPA or coming out of that generation completely. That is something which is in the shorter term.
Okay. For Prayagraj, so do we have waste and water neutrality over there as well?
So yes, we are working across all our plants. We are working with the same technologies to make sure that we can manage it to the extent possible. And since Prayagraj is part of the portfolio, similar efforts are made there also.
Okay, thank you. The second question is on Tata Power's plan to separate its renewable assets into a separate entity. So we are aware that the plan is yet to come to fruition, and there are several possibilities over there. But is the company looking at the ESG aspects also while planning to separate its RE? Because after that, mostly on the generation side, we'll be left with coal businesses only. So, what are the thoughts of the company on this front?
So, Anshuman, this is Rahul here again. I'll start with the response, and of course, Jyoti and team can add in. See, the first and the most important part is that the strategy of Tata Power, as we had laid out, is completely focused on sustainable businesses. And as we had mentioned to the investor community earlier, that the revenue mix is going to see a significant shift towards renewable, cleaner, and greener sources of revenue. That said, with respect to your specific question in the monetization part, right? There are different structures that are possible, as we had mentioned earlier. And clearly, we have to be mindful of the ESG aspect in case if there is a split which leaves one part of the business which is completely not having any linkages with the cleaner and the greener business has to be taken into consideration whenever a call is being taken. So this is all part of the evaluation. As you would also appreciate that there are different aspects that need to be considered. As and when this gets done, you will of course come to know about it. And it may not so happen that all of this would be the entire restructuring would be done in one single step, right? So all of these aspects can be fed into whatever are the steps of restructuring that are involved.
Okay, okay. My final question is on the recent acquisition of the Odisha Discoms. So, as we see, there is a lot of scope of implementing our social and environmental projects over there. So, could you please elaborate on what the company is planning towards the same?
Jyoti here, Anshuman. So, like all our other areas of operation, Odisha is also, being given the right impetus and focus from the corporate social responsibility as well as environment, biodiversity, and sustainability practices. One of the things which we have already started doing is to work with the state government on creating safe elephant corridors, because that's one thing which is very critical in the state. We are also working very closely with our ground staff there to create programs which benefit the communities. One of the things which we have already started doing across all the 4 DISCOMs is creation of self-help groups to empower women in the state, similar to the self-help groups that we run across other locations. Also, there is a full corporate responsibility program in the pipeline, which is already beginning to take shape there. And over the next 6 to 8 months, you will see the kind of impact that is being created there. In the 1 year that the Central Odisha operation has been operational in the state, we have already worked closely with women, with rural communities, and with government stakeholders to start creating the ecosystem which benefits communities. During COVID, we worked very closely with the public health sector and government to really donate cylinders, concentrators, work with them to ramp up the hospital bed capacity and so on. So Odisha is a very, very large focus for us. We have in fact already got some 4 fairly senior people from within the organization who are spearheading the CSR initiatives in each of the 4 DISCOMs. So you will see a lot more and hear a lot more over the next few months, because we've used the last 6 to 8 months to really set the process and the system and the base for ramping up the whole thing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have the next question from the line of Nitya Surya. Nitya Surya, kindly unmute your line and go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi. So I have some couple of questions regarding E factor. So is there any, are there any power stations which are operating in the water stress areas?
Sorry, can you please repeat your question? I'm not sure I heard it very clearly.
Yeah, can you hear me now properly?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so my question was that are there any power stations which are operating in water stress areas?
In water stress areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So CGPL Mundra is the one that is operating in the coastal zone. Yes. So. One sec, I'll just hand it over to my colleague Vaishnavi
Yeah,
to
sure.
answer this in a little more detail for you. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. So our coastal areas, CGPL is one of the areas where water is a key, consideration. But for CGPL plant, literally 99% of the water is seawater, which is used for cooling. So the fresh water usage is very, very limited for the plant. And even there are multiple programs which are there on the ground to be able to, replenish the ground level water.
Okay. Thanks. So second question was that, so when you mentioned about the initiatives which we are taking on the energy saving side, like like installing smart grid meters or the EZ part. So what exactly was your philosophy on that? I mean, how did you approach it? And for Tata Power as a company, how it is reducing the E-risk?
Okay. So see, one of the key pillars of our businesses going forward is that we work very closely with our retail consumers, because that's where also there is a large change that can be made by making little changes in the way they sort of consume energy. And a lot of it we've understood with our consumer work is that there is pent up understanding and demand, but not enough awareness and not enough sort of capacity yet to be able to convert and upgrade. So our philosophy is that we make it very easy for consumers to make small changes in their lives with the products and services that we offer them. And those little changes will then add up to a very large change. Just to give you an example, when a home converts to a smart meter, it basically allows them to monitor their energy usage very easily via an app, and they can then make little changes to manage that. While it has a direct benefit in terms of savings in electricity bills, it also has a benefit in terms of better and more optimized consumption, therefore impacting the environment positively. When we look at, say, for example, our Easy Home products, which are smart home automation products, again, our focus is not just on the product, which is changing a switch to a smart switch, or converting your home into a smart home via a gadget, but the big focus is on understanding how is it that you're consuming energy internally, and what can you do to make it more optimal. So these are the kind of initiatives which we are taking to make sure that we are able to give our customers simple, easy, and very convenient products and services, which really allow them to make these changes. EV charging, again, is another customer-facing initiative where by setting up these EV charging infrastructures, we are creating an ecosystem which actually will help to aid the adoption of EV in the country. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks for your response.
Thank you. We have the next question from the line of Preeti Jadhav from Kotak Mutual Fund. Preeti, kindly unmute your line and go ahead with your question.
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you for your time. I have one question. I have like few questions, but one is regarding your carbon neutrality program. So if you could elaborate on your, carbon neutrality program, what plans do you have in place in terms of, when you're going to be carbon neutral? If there are any climate commitments in terms of decarbonization, renewable energy, etc. So if you could highlight on that, it would be really helpful.
I'll just start off and then I'll hand it over to my colleague. Is decarbonization, like I showed you during the presentation also, is obviously one of the big pillars of our overall strategy, and we follow a multifold approach. One of the big pillars is, of course, that we are committed to adding no new coal-based capacity. The second is in terms of growing our clean and green renewable energy portfolio, which is not only at a B2B level, but even at a B2C level, where we are running large consumer-facing programs to help consumers adopt to rooftop solar, both in alignment with governments in states as well as on a direct-to-consumer basis. And things like solar pumps, microgrids, all of which help to increase the consumption of clean energy at a retail consumer level. And then the third part of this entire program is to make sure that we adopt practices and technologies which allow us to manage the emissions while our plants are in operation. My colleague Vaishnavi will add a little more detail to this.
Yes, so just adding on to that, all the growth areas that Tata Power is focusing on, whether it is generation, largely through renewables, or whether it is transmission and distribution, or all the new businesses, are aligned to the decarbonization agenda of Tata Power. In fact, our strategy is driven by 3 Ds, which is decarbonization, decentralized distributed generation, and digitalization. And the raison d'etre for this is that energy efficiency is also a way of bringing down the carbon footprint. So not just are we going through carbon neutral sources, but we are also trying to bring down the carbon footprint of existing businesses for our company as well as for our customers.
So Vaishnavi, will that mean that you will like phase out thermal going forward, like not like next year or so, but in the near future, right?
Yes, that is definitely on the cards, and we are evaluating all options where we can either phase out the thermal plant at the end of the contractual obligation or at end of life.
Okay, understood.
And this is definitely well before 2050.
Well before? I didn't get the last part.
The total portfolio will become 100% clean and green well before 2050. But for each of the plants, they are at different ages depending on their commercial operation dates. There will be units which will be getting phased out as they reach either their end of contractual obligation or their end of life.
Understood, understood. Thank you. And one more last question with regards to scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, and the CDP, science-based target. Where do you think Tata Power stands right now, and the way forward for it?
No, this is definitely, I think, a very interesting question, because right now with the revised guidelines, it is no longer scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, it is direct and indirect emissions. And there are very clear categorization, 6 categories under which it needs to be considered. So for Tata Power, currently scope 1 and scope 2, the way it was understood traditionally, are the larger aspects to be addressed. And we have very clear plans for, as we have already discussed, through phase out of thermal plants, or through addition of clean and green capacity, where these emissions will be addressed. For scope 3, with our newer businesses, the boundary conditions need to be fairly well defined, and that is a work in progress. And we will, definitely address all of them.
Okay. I have one last question for Jyoti and Vaishnavi, if I can go ahead with that. This is with regards to governance practices. So I want to know if ESG parameters, practices, though they are in the KRA of your say employees management, does it also do you also include it in the remuneration of the board of directors?
So our senior management right to the top actually has them as part of their KRAs, like we mentioned earlier. And I'm sure you must be aware that at the senior level, remunerations are tied into your KRA achievement. Right. So in that sense, there is a linkage to building sustainable businesses through the chain.
Okay, Thank you so much for your time, both of you.
Sorry, I also just missed out on one point. When you're talking about scope 2, scope 3, we must, keep in mind that we've committed to SBTI, and
Right.
therefore, once we publicly declare our targets in 2023 or earlier, this will be something that we will be, both working on and declaring on a
And
yearly basis.
okay, and with the new SEBI guideline of BRSR, where do you stand on, and how do you feel like if you started reporting, like the conversation, like conversing from BRR to BRSR?
Yes, we are going to be adopting BRSR for our reporting next year. We have come out with a second integrated report this year, and that will get enhanced in the next year when we adhere to BRSR.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. We have the next question from the line of Dhruv Muchal, HDFC Mutual Fund. Dhruv, kindly unmute your line and go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had one question, and that was on these rating agencies. Say, for example, I was looking at probably your rating for, say, example, MSCI. You have a double B, I believe, if I'm not wrong. So based on your discussions with them, or based on your own understanding of how they rate you, do you see a scope of improvement there? And just some thoughts there. Also, because why I'm asking this is because if I remember correctly, I believe they give you a negative score for the water stress because I believe you operate in some water stress regions. Probably, I think it's Mudra. But as you mentioned that you use seawater, which is almost 99% seawater, which then implies it should not be a negative score. So just wanted to understand your thoughts there. Any scope for improvement in the rating score?
See, we obviously continuously, are in conversation with the rating agencies to understand their methodologies, as well as to provide them with information on what we are doing across all these segments of improvement. One of the things which I'm sure you all are aware of is that most rating agencies work with information which is available in the public domain. Now, that's something which over the last 2 years, we've actively worked on to make sure that we are able to put out more information in the public domain so that they have access to correct information and are able to then assess us properly. But that's something which is an ongoing sort of effort for us also, because a lot of the work that we do actually, sometimes we are not at liberty to put out some of it, and therefore that can impact, some of these scores and ratings adversely. But definitely internally, we have taken a target as a team to improve the not only the MSCI rating, but also S&P and other rating agencies which assess this. And if you go to our website now, you will see that over the last 12 months, the amount of information that we are putting out now to help them assess our efforts better is much more. If you look at our integrated report, you will also see that there is a lot of information, and it's a fairly comprehensive report. If you go to our website, you can also see our ESG profile for yourself. So these are the things which we are also continuously working on to make sure that we are able to give them right information to assess us.
Got it. That's helpful.
And if you see the latest CRISIL ratings, the CRISIL ESG scores, the first scores which they have put out this year, Tata Power is actually right at the top in terms of all the Indian power utilities with a score of 67 on 100. Of course, we have much more to do. But at least within India, within the power sector, we are currently at the top, courtesy the efforts that we have been making in this space.
Got it. So just one follow-up. So, the thing is, we are not privy to how they evaluate companies, for example, likes of MSCI. So based on your understanding of how they rate you and your discussion with them, do you think, and given that now you're sharing more information, do you think that there are some low-hanging fruits which can, once the data is available and they evaluate you better, that can drive some rating upgrade for us? Some thoughts. I'm not sure if you can comment directly on specific rating number, but yeah, there's some thoughts.
I can quickly talk about. One is that we are now very clearly putting out our targets on carbon, water, and waste reduction. We are more vocal about our biodiversity commitments. So I mean, till now, I think Tata Power has been quite reticent about talking about a lot of work that it does, especially in the biodiversity and in the social responsibility space. So in fact, you know, one constant surprise to us is that our scores are little lower on the S component compared to other organizations, when actually the kind of work that we do is far more exhaustive and far more comprehensive. You know, just to give a small example, when COVID hit, literally every organization, I think, sort of gave out oxygen or worked with hospitals or did this or did that, and they all put it out in the public space, in PR, on their LinkedIn profiles from the top, and so on and so forth. Whereas Tata Power very quietly worked, and I think if we share with you the extent of work that we did, it was across some 70 odd locations, and if we were to add up, I think it would probably be almost like a mini government initiative that we really ran during the first wave and the second wave of COVID. It is just that, you know, we were not very particular about talking about it in the public space. Now, that's something which we have learned via our conversations with these agencies, that, you know, this is actually quite a low-hanging fruit, because once we just start putting out what is it that we are doing, that itself will, you know, help us to raise our S score. Similarly, on the governance part also, you know, one of the things which we haven't yet been putting out and working, you know, in the public space is the work that we do across our supply chain, in terms of how we work with them to ensure that they are following and helping us to achieve the targets that we've set for ourselves. So that's another thing which we are now very closely working with our supply chain backwards on. So these are the things which I can tell you right now. There is a lot more, which I think we will have to find another more opportune time to come out with.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. We have the next follow-up question from the line of Nitya Surya. Nitya, kindly unmute your line and go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, hi. I only have one last question. So you might be aware, like China and other European countries have launched emission trading schemes in their agenda. And it is also expected that India might be launching an external carbon pricing policy like the ETS on the similar line. And and high emitting companies have to be prepared for it. So does Tata Power have any internal carbon pricing policy, in its place?
So hi Nitya, Tata Power has definitely considered internal carbon pricing, and we have evaluated, and we are aligning on a number that we want to consider, and you should be hearing about it soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have the next question from the line of Suraj Purohit. Suraj, kindly unmute your line and go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi. It's Suraj Purohit from UTI AMC. So, as of 2021, if I'm not wrong, your generation mix, the clean energy or the renewable energy would comprise of 31%, if I'm not wrong. And this is for 2030, the clean energy mix would be close to 80%, and gradually by 2040-50, it would be 100% of your generation mix. So if you could just let me know if the renewable side and the green, the clean energy mix, will it be primarily driven by the solar, or what would be the strategy out there?
We are following a hybrid strategy. A large part is solar, but there is also wind. There is some amount of hydro, as you know that Tata Power was one of the pioneers of hydro generation in India, and yeah, so it's basically a mix of solar, wind, and hydro. These are the three that are going to be the big focus for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have the next question from the line of...
Adding to that.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
just to complete that line of thought, just adding to that, there are many innovative models which also Tata Power is working on. So we have, hybrid model where solar and wind put together. We have already, commissioned a 225. We have an LOI for a 225 megawatt for our mobile distribution business. We have also initiated projects on floating solar, and we are evaluating the emerging technologies, whether it is offshore wind, tidal. So any technology where the cost of generation starts becoming viable, we will be very happy to adopt that as a leader, industry leader.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the next question from the line of Samir Goyal. Samir, kindly unmute your line and go ahead with the question.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Now you're looking to go into coal mining. So how is that going to be a part of your ESG strategy?
Sorry, Samir, would you just come back?
So how about coal mining, which is going to, how is that going to be a part of your ESG strategy going forward?
So we have not publicly laid out any strategy or any aspiration of getting into coal mining. So the current investments that we have in the coal mines, which is basically the Indonesian coal mines, so you are aware that we have already exited one of the mines, and we're in the process of exiting another mine, which is a smaller coal mine. And as the management had laid out, that we are actively looking at the strategy for the KPC coal mine, which is the largest coal mine. We have got a license renewal process which is ongoing currently. So once that process gets over, then a call will be taken on that. But other than that, we don't have any aspiration to get into coal mining.
Sure. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, there is time for possibly a last question if possible. Anyone who would like to ask a question may raise their hands or just unmute their line directly and speak out the question.
Hi, this is Anshuman. Can I go ahead?
Sure, Anshuman, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have one question on the company's, whether the company is looking forward towards adopting green hydrogen technologies and also its view on battery storage. So if you could tell us something about that.
Yeah, Anshuman. So Anshuman, we keep on evaluating all the upcoming technologies and sources of energy. So we actively are evaluating the hydrogen also as part of that evaluation. With respect to the EV that we are already actively involved in the EV infrastructure. Today we don't have any capabilities, neither a laid out plan of getting into batteries, but that is something which we'll keep on evaluating, and as and when there's a development, we will let you know.
Okay, thank you so much.
Just add on, Anshuman, I think the one thing which we are doing as an organization is actively mentoring and supporting the clean energy startup ecosystem to make sure that technologies and products and services which will help us move towards a more sustainable portfolio of products is something that we can really raise from the ground up. So that's something that's definitely part of our strategic intent going forward.
Okay, but green hydrogen are there in the company's plan, no? The technology specifically
is that all of these are emerging technologies, and obviously as an industry leader we evaluate everything, and an adoption or non-adoption of a particular technology obviously has multiple reasons, including economic viability, including technological viability, and so on. So like he mentioned, while we are evaluating all emerging technologies, but at this point of time, we are not able to give you any specific information on that. Once we are ready to do that, we will definitely make a public statement about it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, this is Rahul back again. So I think we've just, overshot our time. So I would like to thank all the participants and a special thanks to the Tata Power team led by Jyoti, Vaishnavi, Rahul, and Adidarshi. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time and the entire team of Tata Power and all the participants.
Thank you, Rahul, and thank you to all the participants for your time. We look forward to staying in touch with you.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.